see. This should be a fun one.
Yeah, I
So,
always enjoy these.
yeah, nice wrap up to our 2025 Horrorthon, which was interesting in many ways. We had several people that haven't come before, including your wife, who doesn't
Yep.
really care for horror. And the horror movies chosen, we did it without knowing a whole lot about them, but they had a lot of similar themes. And one wasn't even really much of a horror, even though it got pushed as a horror. That made it interesting. Great movie, though. Let's talk a little bit about those and let everybody know what they're like to go watch.
Yeah. First on the docket, we had a film called Strange Darling. That movie was from 2023. It ran an hour and 37 minutes. It is an American film. It was filmed in Oregon. It had a $4 million budget and pulled in $7 million.
Nice.
$3 million in the US and Canada alone for the box office, which it was distributed by Miramax, and apparently Miramax wasn't too happy. They thought they would make more money off of it on the original box office release. And in fact, Miramax actually played with this quite a bit. It was written by a guy named J.T. Molnar and directed by him. And when it was done, they decided they were going to re-edit the whole thing with a new director. So they were going to do that, and they did a version of it like that, where they did it consecutive instead of jumping around.
I knew that's what you were going to say.
Yep. And he had a clause in his contract with them that if they did that, they would take the director's cut and their cut and screen them before audiences, and whichever one would play better is the one that they would distribute. And of course, his is the one that played better, so that's what got distributed.
Oh, yeah, which absolutely, just without giving too much away on it, it's told as a serial, is how they present it, but it's told out of order.
Yes, it's non-sequential.
Yeah, shows like that are interesting, and they definitely, if this would have been done in order, it would have lost pretty much all impact. It would have been a pretty boring, straightforward movie. It's a slasher, but it's more psycho.
Yeah.
Slasher.
In fact, the audiences watched it, the one from Miramax, where it was in order. By the time it got to the second section, they already knew exactly what was going on.
Yeah, and I was figuring out what was going on just because of the type of movie I knew it was, but it definitely was much more interesting the way it was told. But it's like one of those TV shows where they show this scene and then it says 72 hours earlier, and that's how it starts after the credits and stuff. So it was, I thought it was a great movie. They did it very well, and I'm so glad that it didn't get ruined by Miramax, which how many times have we said, oh, the executives think they know better and put their finger in and ruin it.
Yep. And a lot of people agree with you. It got 26 nominations and 6 wins as far as the award circuits. I thought it was really interesting. There's a couple really interesting parts to this. If you go through and you watch the credits where it gets to the thank yous, Tiffany Haddish gets one. Don't know why. Dee Wallace gets one.
Oh.
Don't know why Dee Wallace is in there. Giovanni Ribisi did a little bit of voiceover with it, but this was also his first full-length major motion picture that he ran as cinematographer.
Oh,
He's
interesting.
done shorts and videos before, but never a full movie, and I thought the camera work was immaculate.
Yeah, we were talking about that, how cool some of the camera work was and how interesting that part of it was. It definitely felt like a small indie film that wasn't quite as small an indie as it felt, and it was done really well. I thought it was my favorite of the three of the night.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you. And it was indie. Like JT Molnar comes from Vegas. He was into horror all his life. His family runs what they call horror shows, but it's like a haunted houses in Las Vegas. They have like their own company that does this. So he's been in this genre, but it's not like Oz Perkins where he's like some cinema darling who came in and did this. He's directed 10 films, 8 of them are shorts. He has one full-length other film called Outlaws and Angels that came out before this one. He's got 9 completed screenplays as well, and he's got one upcoming screenplay, which is The Long Walk.
Ah, yeah, that's out now, actually.
It is. They don't have, yeah. He has one other film coming up called Blackbird. There's not much out there. He wrote it. Dee Wallace will be in it, but if I had to guess, it looks like he doesn't have a director yet because
Hmm.
there hasn't been any direction moving forward with it. But he has a screenplay. He's got his star. He's just waiting to button everything else up.
It was definitely a good piece. People should check that one out. And this, the other, the second one I had heard about, but this one I hadn't heard about it till you brought it up. And
Yeah,
we watched the trailer, and I was like, oh, that. And it was rough because you presented three choices for film one. And one of them I said, okay, we'll disqualify that because I think it was Smile and you'd already seen it. So I'm like, let's go with stuff neither of us have seen. And then the other two choices, both of them looked really good. And I just couldn't decide. I'm glad I went with this one.
flip a coin.
Yeah, pretty much. I think I watched the trailers a dozen times on each.
And I always love it when they do this. They don't name their characters. So
Right.
the woman in this is called the Lady, and she was played by Willa Fitzgerald, who's from Tennessee. She's done 43 working pieces. The one you'd probably know her best from, she was in the first season of Reacher. She was the ingenue police officer who worked with
Oh,
him.
yeah. Okay. Wow. Didn't even recognize her.
And Kyle Gallner played the demon. That's how he's listed in the credits. He's from Pennsylvania. He's worked on 73 projects, including Smile 1 and Smile 2, the latest Scream, the A Nightmare on Elm Street, and he was in Jennifer's Body, which is another good one out there.
Which I hear some people have wanted to do.
Okay. Oh, and Ed Begley Jr. is in there. I love Begley Jr.
Yeah, and he was great. Him and
Yeah,
his wife, the characters on there were super. Oh, we're ex hippies. I'm more of an ex biker. They were really good, and they were in just a little while, but added a lot to it. There's a lot of flavor throughout the whole movie.
absolutely.
So
But yeah, I thought it was the best of the night. It was also solidly horror, which is more than I can say for the next one.
yeah, which it's a Netflix streamer, and it has devil in the title, devil all the time, and it was pushed as a horror movie off of Netflix. The trailer screams horror. Everything about it was pushed as a horror movie.
Yeah, it reminded me of two films. It reminded me of Legends of the Fall.
Yeah, that's what you said, and it was like, yeah, dead on.
Yeah, it's one of those multi-generational stories where they're like, here's the main character, but we're going to tell you how in the world he came to be even before he came to be thing.
Right.
So it has that big cinematic feel to it. It also reminded me of Hold the Dark. When we did Hold the Dark, I said you could argue this isn't a horror film, but here's why I thought it was. It had very gratuitous violence and it had this kind of element of the supernatural that was laced throughout it. This doesn't have either, really.
It's a period piece, definitely.
Right, and I think that takes it out of the running as an actual horror film. It's from 2020. It's 2 hours and 18 minutes, as these kind of giant saga epics usually are. It was filmed in the United States. There's no budget information on it, but it's funny because it's set in West Virginia and Ohio, but it was shot in Alabama.
It looked a lot like West Ohio area.
It did, yeah, and I guess maybe the funding down there was more to their liking and you could get a more varied look. I don't know. Ohio's a pretty varied state, but
Yeah. But yeah, you mentioned the horror supernatural element. It was hinting like it was going to be that, but it never did. It never was. There wasn't anything like that. And it wasn't even slasher crazy with the death. Like I said, it wasn't horrific, but it had horrific deeds throughout the movie.
yeah. So like the big difference between this and a horror movie, they come across a man who's been like flayed and crucified and the amount of screen time that gets is like fractions of a second as opposed to if this had been I don't know, Jan Evernall, it would have been a slow pan all the way down. And that's like the difference between horror and not, where they'll decide where to look away.
Yeah. And again, good movie. I'd recommend it. I'd say it's worth watching. It's interesting. It's got a star studded cast. It's got Spider Man and Batman and Bucky in it. So, you get some superhero action going on. No, not really superhero action, but
It was based on a novel from 2011 of the same name by a guy named Donald Ray Pollock. He actually was from Knockemstiff, Ohio. That was
which,
his hometown,
which is a great name.
and he was the narrator.
Oh,
So they had him do the narration of his own story. It's the first time he's ever done that kind of voiceover. Jake Gyllenhaal was a producer on this film.
some interesting names on producing and cinematography here in these couple movies.
Yeah, it was directed by an American director named Antonia Campos. He's married to a film editor named Sophia. I'm going to mess this up. Subercaso, maybe? She actually did editing on this project. He's done 12 titles. He's produced 16. He's directed 12. He's produced 16, including Martha, Marcy, May, Marlene. Easy for me to say, which is a great movie. And that I would consider that horror. He did an episode of Arkham that's coming out soon, and he has a film titled The Beast in Me, which will be coming out soon.
Interesting.
But yeah, you were talking about stars. It's got Bill Skarsgård from
Oh
It,
yeah, him too. I forgot. Yeah, Pennywise.
Tom Holland, who's Spider-Man. It was supposed to have Captain America. The sheriff was supposed to be played by Chris Evans, who had a conflict with the date, so he suggested they use Sebastian Stan. And so you have Sebastian Stan, Bucky come in and do that. Riley Keough from Hold the Dark was the honeypot, for lack of a better word. Jason Clarke, who was in Pet Cemetery, he was in this. Harry Melling from Harry Potter series, the
Yeah.
guy who played Dudley.
We were sitting there and Gina looked it up and said, "Oh my God, that's Dudley." We were all like, "Oh," and then you could see it. The whole, his eyes were Dudley the whole time. But
Yep.
yeah, he did not play a good character in this one.
No, bad things happen.
Yeah,
Uh,
that
Robert,
that describes the movie. That's
yeah,
the tagline.
Robert Pattinson was in this. He's a sparkly vampire Batman.
And
Mia
now
was
an evil preacher.
Yes. Mia Wasikowska was in this, and she's from Only Lovers Left Alive and Crimson Peak.
Oh, okay.
So two more horror movies there. And Douglas Hodge was in this, and he was on The Joker, which I thought was funny because we had Batman in this as
Right.
well. But
And again, it's a good movie. Just when you expect horror, it's kind of like biting into chocolate pudding and it tastes like sauerkraut.
okay, sure, yeah, it definitely was surprising, and I think a kind of theme here is that when it reminds me of that Viggo Mortensen film, something about violence. And
Oh, wow. I forgot about that. Yeah.
yeah, that was based on a graphic novel too, but it's like violence begets violence is the theme kind of thing that seems to work here really well, and it worked with the first one too a little bit because a lot of the violence was being perpetrated because violence was done in the first place, but
Right. And in this one, they took out the dog. Not only that, they really showed it. That was graphic. I wouldn't push that into the horror realm at all, but it was very graphic.
yeah, yeah, it was. I think it was because the dog had such a close obvious connection with the boy, it made it that much more powerful to
Yeah.
make it a thing.
Yeah, it's definitely a nice piece.
Yeah, it's a great movie. You just wait until November 2nd to watch it.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. It does have that kind of autumnal feel to it. It feels like the kind of movie that you would watch in the fall.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
It's a good choice to go between horror movies and Christmas movies.
sure. Yeah. Let's call it a Thanksgiving movie. They eat
Yeah,
in this. There's a lot
yeah.
of picnics.
They celebrate life.
Yes. Which brings us to our last film.
Another one we really didn't know much about, chose by throwing a dart.
Yeah, and it turns out it's not surprising we didn't know much about it. It was called The Last Matinee. It came out in 2020. It was an hour 28 minutes. This is solidly a horror movie, not just a horror movie. This is a slasher.
Very much. Yep.
It was, I had said this before, it was an Argentinian film, which I have had Argentinian films on in my list, but it was done in partnership with Uruguay and Mexico. So this would be the first Uruguayan film I have on my database of horror movies that I've seen.
And I wonder if, the Uruguay film people are wanting to ramp up, and it's easy to partner with someone that's done it and learn a little bit about and the money and get the name out there, start building it up. That maybe that's why they don't have a lot, but maybe they're working on it.
It was filmed in Uruguay
Oh,
on a budget of about $400,000. So
wow.
it was distributed in the US by Bloody Disgusting. And again, that's a real coin toss. And honestly, it's favored towards tails on those.
Yeah.
It- about 2/3 of those films are just really not worth your time. But every once in a while, you get a little gem. And this was actually really good. It is actually a solid Gio film from South America.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's no question about what it is. It's a guy running around killing people. They follow the classic formula. They don't even really give a good reason for it. They just kind of start killing.
It's true. And it does like the entire, if you watch Behind the Mask, The Rise of Leslie Vernon, and you take notes about what he says things have to be, and then you watch this, you could just sit there and check them
Check.
off as you go along.
Yeah. And the best part, there's the one part that's absolutely the best was the pickle jar of eyes that he collected with the melon baller and then ate.
Yes. In fact, his name in the credits is like something eye eater.
Your niece translated it because it was in Spanish and she translated it that I eat a monster or something like that or killer.
And this was the movie Steve provided us with horror bingo cards, and this was the movie that got price bingo
Yes.
because it certainly had plenty of things to check off the list. It was written and directed by a Uruguayan named Maximiliano Contenti. He lives in Spain now. He's written and directed 14 pieces, and he has one in the works called The Channeling. And it is a Uruguayan American partnership. And it's about alien abduction, I think.
Oh, wow. Cool.
So I don't know if it's English language or not. Like he has poster art already done. So this thing is like on the verge of coming out.
Oh, nice. We'll have to look for it.
Yeah. The cast was great.
Yeah.
There's no point in going over them because they won't have been in anything any of you will have known.
Right.
But I will mention one of them. Ricardo Islas plays the killer. And the interesting thing about Ricardo Islas is he's also a director, and he directed a English language film in 2011 called Frankenstein Day of the Beast, which is the movie that's playing in the theater where he's killing everybody.
Yes. Nice. Yeah. It looked a little bit like a Hammer movie. So, you get two of his movies for the price of one.
Yeah, so you've got Ricardo Islas's film they're playing, and then you've got Maximiliano's Contenti's film that has the whole thing wrapped up. I thought that was really pretty cool. That
Yeah, that is. I'm
yeah,
glad
you
you
can
looked.
use my movie, but you better put me in there. In fact, I
Right.
want to be the killer.
Come on. If you were going to be in a horror slasher, wouldn't you want to be the killer at least?
I don't know. I might prefer some sort of giant grisly death.
Yeah.
Disembowel me and
Yeah, think of something new. I just watched My Bloody Valentine because it's got one of Colin's favorite, the hot dog water of death scene.
yep,
But
yep.
I don't think that's my favorite slasher kill. Some of the new ones the last couple years have been pretty fun and inventive. That's what you got to do now. If you're going to do a straight out slasher, you got to do something inventive. The eating of the jar of pickled eyeballs was pretty fun, even though it wasn't directly killing somebody, but that
Well, they were dead when he harvested them.
yeah. So, it's running around the theater and eh, they, you mentioned following the rules. How many times were we like, oh my God, don't stop. Just run out the door. Oh my God, stab him again, kill him, hit him in the head. Don't stop doing that. And they followed all the rules of, like you said, slasher physics. No, we can't hit him again because it's only halfway through the movie and he'd be dead too quick.
And we have a final girl and we have a sequel bait child,
Yes,
all kinds of really and it is like conceptually like that would be a nightmare, right? Going
right.
to see a horror movie and then being locked inside as someone walks around and kills everybody else.
Right.
But yeah,
Now, if they want to follow it up with a second one, they really should do the sequel with the kid before he grows up. A kid running around as a slasher, that's a little bit of a unique twist that would freak people out, I think.
yeah. Well, a running, talking puppet freaks people out that's killing people, much less an actual child.
They should do the sequel where the kid is like just consumed by this theater and he goes and kills people but drags them to the theater and sets them up to watch the movie. The movie's just like playing on loop over and over for him. There you go.
And
Those
then the
would be fun.
theater's haunted by the ghosts of those people who died as well.
Imploring people to leave but they can't see them, so it's just ghosts floating around in agony like in Christmas Carol.
Good deal.
Yeah, there we
Yeah.
go, we just wrote it. That's
Start
how we
working on
ended.
that script.
Yeah, I'll get some video going. So there's our horror-thon. Like you said, we did bingo, and that was fun. The bingo. We didn't really care who won. I'm glad Price got his first and that, but it would have been, I think, more checks off if the movies had been a little more variety in there, a little varied, but they were very similar in tone. So it's like we're all sitting there going, I can't check anything off.
I think so. I was hanging out with the boys on Saturday, and it was maybe Brian who pointed out that a lot of the movies being made presently are horror movies.
Yeah.
And I was pointing out the economics behind it, that it doesn't matter how well it does in the box office. If you wait long enough, you're making money off of it. And in this day of economics runs everything, that makes it a safe investment. I think if we go into that, maybe next year's we'll sit there and just look for all of the smaller ones that slipped by everybody from this
That-
past couple years.
That's a
And
good
we could
idea.
load up with that.
Yeah, that's probably a great idea because there's tons that have come out, and there's a few I came out last year. I didn't even hear about it, didn't know about it,
Yep.
or so, the names don't always give it away anymore. Like we were just talking about Together, that Michael Shanks wrote and directed, I believe, from
Yeah.
Stargate guy. And I'm like, oh, we're Together, and I saw a man and woman. I'm like, oh, it's must be a romance, and you're like, oh, it's a horror, and I'm like,
It's
are you
body
kidding?
horror.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm like, huh, interesting.
Yeah, yeah. I think if you haven't tried this, and I'm not talking about Steve, I'm talking about just our listeners in general. If you haven't tried this, you can literally go to Google and type in horror movies from and then type in the year, and you'll get a really good list. There will be things for the casual horror viewer where you're going to see 3 titles and you're like, yeah. And then everything else, you'd be like, I didn't even know that was out there.
And a lot of those sometimes turn out to be wonderful. We've found that out many times.
For sure.
I'll tell everybody my favorite of the last couple years has been Presence, Haunted House Story. One of my favorite horror movies the last couple years. It must be because I still remember the name of it and what it's about after seeing 50 other movies.
Yeah, like, you do that with 2023, Strange Darling is gonna be on that list, and we'd never heard of it.
Yeah, the two of Black Phone and Smile were on the list, and they were both really popular. And you had seen the one, so or maybe both.
I
We
hadn't seen Black Phone. Price
okay.
went to see the sequel, and he enjoyed it a lot, and he hadn't seen the first one even.
Yeah,
So,
Black Phone is on the list. It's supposed to be really good. So I'm hopefully go watch it here soon. But then there's also The Damned and In a Violent Nature. And they both look good. And The Damned was on my list from previously. So I think I'm going to watch those anyway. So I'm basically watching all 9 of the choices we
you can
had
do them
for the
anyways.
horror.
It's private horror-thon.
Yeah, that happens quite often around here. Me and Cassie, we sit and watch them, then she sleeps. That was the one thing that'll remind us about this stupid year was the anxiety-ridden dog walking and tapping, pacing the whole damn time, wouldn't settle down and go to sleep or anything.
Probably 5 miles in loops just around the living room.
Probably. I'm like, man, dog, somebody's gonna shoot you if you keep this up. But yeah. And that was more because somebody was sitting on her couch. Oh
Right.
dear Lord.
Yeah. Oh, in the past, I've always gone and sat on the couch. You're like, "You won't be able to get out." And I'm like, "I'll take my chances." And every time, big dog climbs up in the couch with me.
Yeah. Yeah. In her old age, she doesn't even want to climb up on there by anybody. She just wants you off.
Oh,
That's the thing
I
now.
don't care that I can't get up there. I just don't want you there.
Yeah.
That's
Oh
nice.
man, I'll tell you, there have been a couple of the kids that have come over and they sit on the couch and she'll stand there staring at them. until they move. They get up and she jumps up there and curls around Sheldon's spot. It's her and Sheldon are like this.
Yeah, nice.
All right, so there's Horrorthon. If anyone is still doing a horror marathon or going to do one, we've got the bingo cards up on the website. It was fun. There's enough variety to get quite a few people with those. It really only works if you're going to do multiple movies because it's a variety. Tried to get a variety on those cards. So you got some supernatural, you got some ghosts, you got some slasher stuff.
Yeah.
So one movie is not going to cover all of them.
If you want people to have that available, you're gonna have to crank this thing out.
They're up there.
Right around the corner.
It's a PDF. Download it, print it out yourself. All right, man. There we go. 2025 Horrorthon. So here we're getting ready for a horror feast of scary movies coming up.
Yeah, yeah.
Me.
Always look forward to these.
All right. Talk to you later, man.
See ya.